Before Halloween Horror Nights paid tribute to a long-lost attraction, before the Wizarding World, there was one fan favorite that stood out amongst the rest. That was the Dueling Dragons roller coaster at Islands of Adventure. This thrilling ride, built by Swiss manufacturer B&M, consisted of two inverted-style coasters weaving in and out of one another, leading to several near-miss opportunities and high thrills. But before it made its way to the Lost Continent, let's give a bit of backstory to the ride that stood the test of time. Disney, right down the road on Interstate 4, was in the works of their fourth gate, later to be known as Disney's Animal Kingdom, a park of past, present, and myth. Or at least that was partly true. Pitched to Joe Rohde with an idea for a land full of mythological creatures, to be better known as Beastly Kingdom. It would include a walkthrough experience called Quest for the Unicorn, a slow-moving boat ride themed to Walt Disney's 1940 film Fantasia, and a high-thrill roller coaster called Dragon's Tower. The concept was ultimately shelved, however, as a desperate way to save money and to stay on budget. Around the time Disney shelved the project, they also unfortunately laid off the Imagineers who pitched and worked so hard to get it built. In a fiery rage, they took their idea to another park that was currently in the works of something big. Originally a park that would be focused on animation and comic book characters, to be known as Cartoon World, soon found a new home for dragons, unicorns, and myths. Thus, the Lost Continent was born. Opening with the park in May of 1999, this multi-acre land would be home to three sublands within: the Lost City, Sinbad's Bazaar, and Merlynwood. The attractions on opening day were some of the park's most iconic in their time: a walkthrough show called Poseidon's Fury, a theatrical experience known as the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad, two restaurants called Mythos and the Enchanted Oak Tavern, and to top it off, a thrilling high-speed roller coaster that took riders to new heights on Merlyn's Dueling Dragons, later to be shortened to Dueling Dragons. This one-of-a-kind ride manufactured by Bolliger and Mabillard involved two sides, fire and ice. Both sides were two inverted-style coasters that would have a very different ride experience, including many near-miss elements and high positive G-forces. It was not for the faint of heart for sure. You would start your adventure by walking underneath two imposing dragons, marking both sides of the attraction. Nicknamed Pyrock and Blizzrock, these two ferocious beasts would attempt by guarding a decaying castle, but only one will prevail. After heading through a long and winding pathway as you approach the castle's bridge, you will see the two imposing dueling coasters weave and fly high above as you near closer. The queue was most notable for being very lengthy, sure to hold the number of crowds Universal was predicting for this new attraction. As you cross the bridge and head into Merlyn's castle, you are introduced to the ride's backstory. Using a very convincing effect, guests would witness firsthand a sort of pre-show projected onto three stained glass windows that would introduce you to Merlyn, who was overthrown by two fierce dragons. The two beasts destroyed the castle and are left guarding the remains, awaiting to unleash their strength on one another. As riders inch farther into the castle's realm, they would come to Merlyn's spellbook, which would be turned to a page explaining farther the two sides you will be faced with choosing. Venturing along, you will see a series of warning messages about those who were not so lucky, lit by only the occasional torches that would align the cave walls. You would see the remains of the knights who attempted to take on the dragons, but those whose fate is only heard about in legend. The next room you would enter would have icicles hanging from the ceiling, and blue ambient lighting to fill the space. More victims can be spotted along the wall as you head into the next queue area. Venturing down another long and winding cave, skulls line the walls. Nothing but the occasional flickering of lights guides you deeper and deeper. Your spine begins to tingle. Is it too late to turn back? No, you must go on. You come to a split in the path. It is time to choose your fate. Will you go fire? or will you go ice? After choosing your fate and rounding the corner, it is time to board. The pair of twin Dueling Dragons were a staple of the park, becoming one of the must-dos while at Islands of Adventure. Standing at 125 feet, and both sides featuring 5 blood-pumping inversions, this coaster not only offered some of the highest thrills at Universal, but also Orlando, being a one-of-a-kind experience you can't find anywhere else. In the year 2000, Universal decided to add the flying unicorn on what was once the extended queue to Dueling Dragons. This became the first new addition to the park since it opened to the public 1 year prior. This junior-style roller coaster was meant to appeal to a younger demographic. The ride would take those on a gentle journey through an enchanted forest on a mythical unicorn put together by sheet metal and armor by a wizard who came across a unicorn's magical horn, which gave his creation the power to fly and soar through the air. Although it is on the shorter side, it still offers young thrill seekers the chance to go on a fun adventure you can't do anywhere else. As briefly mentioned earlier, the Enchanted Oak Tavern would open with the park on opening day in 1999, and serve as a table service restaurant which guests can get ribs, burgers, turkey legs, and more to fit the medieval theme of Merlyn wood and the Lost Continent. The restaurant's facade was most interesting. It would be designed to look like an old decaying tree stump that would have its roots wrapping around the entire building and surrounding area, as to look like it's been sitting here for hundreds of years. The restaurant would also include live entertainment and a full-service bar inside, making it a unique experience when visiting the park. Oh, you thought this was a Halloween video? We're just getting started. In 2002, Universal wanted to try something unique and a way to take advantage of their new theme park. Since 1991, a year after the resort opened to the public, Universal has been holding their annual haunt event, at the time known as Fright Nights, over at Universal Studios Florida. With the heavy themes within Islands of Adventure, there was so much potential. The possibilities were truly endless. Therefore, Islands of Fear was born. The event would be home to 5 houses, 6 scare zones, and introduce the Caretaker as this year's icon. Merlynwood would become an unofficial scare zone during the event, and the exterior of the Enchanted Oak Tavern would be utilized for live shows and entertainment offerings. In 2002, it was home to the show's Studio 666, and in 2003, Infestation. 2003 saw the restaurant being transformed into the Tangleroot Burning Oak. Studio 666 during Islands of Fear was meant to be a lighthearted dance floor where guests could step away from the terror for a bit and relax, included with a live DJ. Dueling Dragons right across from it also saw its queue transformed for the event. Live performers playing the role of executioners would jump out and attempt to scare unexpected travelers as they attempt to take on the action-packed thrill ride, almost as though this would be a little taste of what we'd get for a house a few decades later. Infestation in 2003 involved this year's icon, the director, in a live stage show. It involved audience participation and was a lot darker than the year prior. Halloween Horror Nights would continue to run at Islands of Adventure until 2005 for Tales of Terror. This would be the first year that all of the houses and scare zones would be linked towards a larger story, and the storyteller was introduced as the icon. The Lost Continent would become the Fire Pit scare zone, and would fit perfectly into Merlynwood. It would have a medieval theme, and would involve different characters and creatures walking around to try to scare you as you walk by. Poseidon's Fury would also see itself transformed into a haunted house for this event. Terror Mines would take over this walkthrough attraction and help connect the Lost Continent and the Fire Pit scare zone to the Terror Queen. In this house, visitors would be on a quest for minerals, thought to have the power needed to create the Terror Blade, in which story has it has done so at the Tangleroot Fire Pits of Dragonforge. 1 year later, in 2006, Halloween Horror Nights would return to Universal Studios and has stayed on that side since. For years, the Lost Continent's popularity was dwindling. and it was time for new management. To capitalize on the ever-growing popularity of the Harry Potter franchise, Universal decided it was time for a change. Estimated at a cost of $265 million, the Wizarding World of Harry Potter would open at Islands of Adventure, taking up a significant part of the Lost Continent. While Poseidon's Fury, the Eighth Voyage of Sinbad, and the Mythos restaurant remained untouched, Merlyn Wood's fate was not as fortunate. In preparation for this new expansion, the existing attractions would either be repurposed or demolished. The Enchanted Oak Tavern would receive a major facelift and be converted into the Three Broomsticks, still offering a dining experience for the new area. However, its old decaying tree facade was of the past. The Flying Unicorn would also receive a major facelift. Now, it would become Flight of the Hippogriff, and the ride's story would be altered. It would be inspired by one of Hagrid's classes, where you get to meet one of his many creatures on a one-of-a-kind flight as you soar and dip over the grounds of Hogwarts Castle. As for Dueling Dragons, it would be rebranded as Dragon Challenge, and receive a new theme to better fit the Wizarding World. It would be inspired by the Tri-Wizard Tournament, most notably featured in the series' fourth book and movie, The Goblet of Fire. The attraction's queue saw the biggest changes. Guests would begin by heading down the same winding pathway as before, where banners and flags are now present, representing the different teams found in the games. You come across Hagrid's hut and a crashed Fort Anglia, then entering the same castle as before, although now it would no longer belong to Merlyn. Guests would instantly recognize different scenes from the film series, as they wind through different rooms and hallways taken directly from J.K. Rowling's books. You would circle a recreation of the very Goblet of Fire which chose Harry Potter, amongst others, to compete in the dangerous competitions, even still emulating a blue flame. Farther down the queue, a screen-used Tri-Withered cup would sit prominently. The queue was very bare-boned compared to what stood before it. Nothing but John Williams' iconic score guided you. Eventually, you would come to a split in the path. The Choose Thy Fate subtext was gone, but it would still be up to you to decide. Now those venturing left would be choosing the Chinese Fireball, while those venturing right would be choosing the Hungarian Horntail. Outside of these changes made to the queue and overall story, the actual ride experience remained unchanged. Well, to an extent. More on that just in a minute. The Wizarding World exploded in popularity. Between two older rides and the all-new highly immersive Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey, it could only go up from here, right? Well, not exactly for the Dueling Dragons. After several reports of guests getting struck by flying objects, the park had to do something about this coaster. It was in 2011, however, when two unrelated accidents occurred of guests getting struck by loose articles. It was at this moment when Universal decided that something had to be done about it. Dragon Challenge no longer dueled. Its signature element was in the past. Years later, the park would introduce metal detectors at the attraction's entrance, making it so all of your belongings had to go into a locker outside of the ride. With this new safety feature, the dragons still didn't duel though. It was too much of a safety risk for the park to take. The ride's popularity was already hanging on by a thread, but now nobody seemed to give the long-standing ride the same attention it once had. Many preferred the white-knuckled rides such as the Incredible Hulk coaster, or even Jurassic Park right down the road. It was only a matter of time before the infamous Dueling Dragons would meet their fate.
Oh, happening today. Go ahead, get out there. It's your last chance if you want to ride the Dragon Challenge roller coaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. But if you're looking for a thrill, you don't have to worry. There's a cool new attraction taking its place.
The ride had been open for nearly 2 decades, coming to the end of its service life. It was on July 24th, 2017, that Universal confirmed a new roller coaster was in the works for the Wizarding World. The ride's popularity was not the same as it once was. Diagon Alley was the first expansion for the Boy Wizard, being built in Universal Studios Florida on the former Jaws attraction. As you can see, Nothing is sacred. Old rides must be replaced with new and better ones to increase capacity and guest satisfaction. It's part of change. You can even see a reference to the original Dueling Dragons in Diagon Alley. Some night clothing is hanging on one of the banisters here overlooking the marketing strip. Many predicted that Universal might be selling the Dragon track to another park, giving the ride another chance at life. But that wasn't the case. Fans quickly realized that the ride was being torn down in a sort of reckless manner. Instead of being dismantled piece by piece, it was stripped apart for scrap metal, never to see another day. On the last day of Dragon Challenge, September 4th, 2017, fans of the long-standing ride flocked to Universal to share their favorite memories. They would stand in front of the attraction's grand entrance and recite old subtext from its Dueling Dragons days from the early years of Islands of Adventure. We've seen how much the superfans react whenever Universal decides to get rid of one of their favorite rides. They still respond in that same way. It was on June 13th, 2019 when the next experience in the Wizarding World opened to the public. Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure would debut at the park to rave reviews. This new family thrill ride would be manufactured by Intamin this time around and become the most expensive coaster ever built at the time, estimated to cost a whopping $300 million. Despite reusing most of the previous queue, the theme would be altered to fit in with the new storyline. Now you are part of Hagrid's class of magical creatures as you go on an out-of-control motorbike ride through the Dark Forest. There's even a nice tribute to the original Dueling Dragons on one of the walls inside the queue, labeled Dueling Club. This new attraction continues to pull in high numbers. Just look at these crowds on opening day. It's clear that this was the move to help expand the theme park and help it stand out amongst the competition. Dueling Dragons, Dragon Challenge, whichever name you chose to call it, was long gone and something of the past. That is, until one day when it would be resurrected. Dueling Dragons Choose Thy Fate would become one of the 10 haunted houses to be included in Halloween Horror Nights 32. This would pay tribute to the long-lost ride and bring it back to life in a way that no one has seen before. The story of the original ride would slightly be altered, however. 2 warlocks of great power were turned into dragons after trying to take Merlyn's spellbook. Now, you and your friends are caught in their epic battle. You must choose a path and a victor. Both warlocks, Pyrock and Blizzrock, travel to Merlyn's castle in seek of his spellbook, after the once famed wizard was cursed and turned into the Enchanted Oak. They must first attempt to travel through the fairy forest, fighting to the death as you go deeper. When they come to the spellbook, it is revealed that Merlyn cast a spell on it, turning them into ferocious dragons. Once you enter the soundstage, you would travel down a long, unthemed passageway, as audio description is given to describe a bit of backstory. You will then round the corner and come to the Enchanted Oak, an exact recreation of the defunct restaurant from the Lost Continent years ago. Entering through its mouth and venturing into the fairy forest, you will see a display of red and blue blasts cut through the tree trunks. Victims of unlucky travelers can be seen lying on the ground. The battle only grows stronger. After escaping the forest, you approach Merlyn's castle. Warnings spoken from the wizard himself can be heard to turn back now, and that the battle has only begun. As you enter the castle and venture down the first corridor, you are attacked by Pyrock and Blizzrock's army. You then come to a rounded room where Merlyn's spellbook sits prominently. It begins to glow, and smoke surrounds it. The protection spell has been initiated amongst the 2 warlocks. Guests are now caught between the 2 warlocks as they are in the middle of transforming into 2 ferocious dragons. You are continuously attacked by the 2 as they grow claws and fangs. In a remarkable recreation of the original Dueling Dragons queue, you enter a chamber with the remains left over from Blizzrock. Knights who were not so lucky hang from the rafters. Blizzrock's army attacks, but you escape. More attacks are made left and right as you inch forward, uncertain at this point who will prevail. both warlocks have taken their final form. A nice tribute to the original ride, the dragons mark their territory sitting atop the castle in a very imposing shape, in which they are breathing both fire and ice. Now it is time to choose thy fate, as the name implies. Both paths have very similar outcomes. However, you may receive one of two endings. Merlyn will either return, claiming you have defeated the two warlocks, or Pyrock and Blizzrock would kill and defeat the wizard, holding a decapitated Merlyn head as you exit the house. Dueling Dragons Choose Thy Fate has many references to the Defunct ride. Outside of just being a faithful recreation of the queue and sharing many similar themes, it also includes many Easter eggs and references that will get any fans of old attractions excited. While featuring the two dragons, Pyrock and Blizzrock, there's also a nice reference to the flying unicorn. You can also spot a reference to Dragonforge from years prior. With so many fun nods to the Lost Continent and future development by Universal, you can tell the creative team that work on these attractions will never forget their history. Epic Universe just down the road, in fact, is receiving their very own How to Train Your Dragon themed land. While it may not feature any ride similar to the twin dueling inverted coaster, it will be receiving a pair of Skyflyer rides, which have already nearly been completed and assembled. And what's that on top of each of them? A blue and red dragon. This new ride set to debut with the park by summer 2025 is even rumored to be themed to dragon racing. One thing is for certain, the long-lost ride of Dueling Dragons and Dragon Challenge will never be forgotten.
Here, let me get in front of you. Come on.
Oh, man. I don't even know what to say. I'm in shock.
What are we live for?
We're in line for Dueling Dragons.
Dragons! 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 Dragons!
Until they came.
Yes!
A twin plague of demonic dragons.
Tell them who it
The
was!
king's army quickly fell, and the entire kingdom turned to the sorcerer.
What do you do?
But alas, he was too old to long oppose foes so fierce and so powerful. And so, the castle fell, its riches plundered, its land scorched,
Amen.
and its people scattered
Yeah.
like ash upon the wind.
Like us.
And to this day,
This day!
the dragons remain,
Woo!
and so too the sorcerer, to discourage foolish knaves such as yourselves who yearn the chivalrous challenge, such as a ride on Dueling Dragons!
We hope you enjoyed this episode of ParkTwister. If you're new around, please consider subscribing. And if you enjoyed the video, then go and hit that like button. To help support us even farther, all affiliated links can be found in the description below. Alright, thanks for watching everyone. I'll see you in the fog.